Greetings and salutations, everybody. Happy Sunday. I'm trying to get back into the swing of streaming. So here I go again. Let's see how I can muck this up this time. There's always a way, and I will find those ways. So help me. However, assuming I can get through this thing, I am meaning to give a read-through to the classic module B5, Horror on the Hill by Douglas Niles. I'm just putting a link to this module on drive-through since it is available digitally. It's behind my head. Let me just move the. What do we do? Browser. Oops. I was trying to move the order here so that. Okay. Maybe I'll. I'll switch sides so it doesn't cover my face. How's that? All right. So next time a chat comes up, I'll put it there. Okay. This is one of my favorite ones. At least it was. I'll see how it reads through on this go, but I have very fond memories of this one. As with a lot of modules, I was always running homebrew games. I was always playing them with homebrew, so I read and digested a lot of modules without actually getting to run them. So I have a weird relationship with a lot of these old modules where I would just pour over them for hours and hours, days and days, weeks and weeks. But then when it came down to running games, I would take bits and pieces of them or ideas for them, but I never really ran them as is. But man, I got a lot of mileage out of flipping through the pages. So let's give it another flip through. There's I like the cover art here. Got some kind of, I don't know who those guys are in the background. Clearly some kinds of not enlightened folk up in the one corner with a club and a spear. And then we have some, clearly, I guess, the stand-ins for the adventuring party marshaling their forces to go on the assault with some, looks like almost a volcano look in the background. Smoke coming out of the side of it somewhere. Trees all around. And let's see, we got a little text on the front cover. Only the mighty river Shrill separates you from the mysterious mountain. Will you be the first to return, or will you fall prey to the horror on the hill? For characters 1 through 3. I want to get my things out. Come on. Let's see. There we go. Douglas Niles is the author, editor Lori Mann, assistant editor Tim Kilpin, graphic designer Ruth Hoyer, cover artist Jim Rosloff, interior artist Jim Holloway. And we got a preface here. So, as usual with these, I don't know if I'm going to read everything verbatim and go through everything, or whether I'm going to highlight certain things. We'll see how it goes. Here, I'm going to open up a can of whoop-ass. No, a can of Diet Coke, so apologize for that wonderful sound. But let me go through the preface, and then we'll play it by ear on how much, if there's anything I'll skip or what I'm going to read through. Guido's Fort, the end of the Trader's Road. Perched along the banks of the mighty river Shrill, this isolated frontier settlement is the last stop on the caravan routes. The mile-wide river is all that separates the fort from the shadowy bulk known only as the Hill, a land of nameless terrors and ancient legend. The fog-shrouded crests and densely wooded slopes of the hill rise 400 feet, looming ominously over the tiny settlement. On clear days, the hill's rocky cliffs can be seen jutting from its bulky mass, but the view is usually obscured by gouts of steam that seem to rise from outlets on the hill itself. Hence that smoke rising on that cover photo. This mysterious mountain has long been rumored to shelter bands of vicious monsters. Only the awesome waters of the Shrill have prevented the monsters from invading the under-garrisoned fort. Several groups of brave and hardy adventurers have crossed the river to explore the hill's summits and face the wicked monsters, but none of these bands was ever heard from again. Now, a new group of eager adventurers has met in one of the inns at Guido's fort. It is here that the adventurers discuss their own daring plans to explore the dangerous mountain. That's you, or, the player characters. Player characters can find transport across the river from any of the local fishermen, but once on the far shore, the adventurers are on their own. They must thread their way through a dense woods where every bend of the trail can conceal hideous peril. They encounter mysterious beings, such as the two, quote, kindly, unquote, old ladies, who may offer the party their special brand of assistance. Or the party may meet the soldiers of a hobgoblin king mustering his forces for an attack on Guido's fort. If they make their way through a ghoulish graveyard, the player characters discover an old monastery, long abandoned by its builders. The monastery is now used as a headquarters for the hobgoblin band. A fountain in the monastery's garden yields a magical drink whose effects may not always be good. Finally, the monastery yields entrance to a multi-level dungeon that is sure to challenge the player's wits and skills. It is in this dungeon that the Hobgoblin King himself must be confronted and defeated. But that is just the beginning. Just as the characters think their adventures are coming to a close, a hidden trap sends them to a staggering network of twisting corridors, all seemingly leading back to the same place. Once through, the characters must conquer the final obstacle, a young red dragon, before they can look upon the sun once more. The rumors have never been proven false. No one else has ever returned. The character's boat is waiting. The hill is one of horror, to be sure. But for the strong and daring, it is a hill of just rewards for deeds well done. The new adventurers are ready and willing to take their chances. So let the adventure begin! Okay, so clearly that's for the GMs to read through. That's one of the things that maybe is divisive about this module is that twist at the end. Because, they've given essentially a behind-the-screen rundown of everything that a party will encounter. And that bit about at the end where you go through the trap and end up in a spot. I don't know if that's aged particularly well. We'll see it when we get there. But I know it's one of the things that I think when people look upon this is not one of the things that's looked upon more kindly. Now let's move on. So we get the table of contents, some nice art. I don't think we just need to skip. A section called Beginning the Adventure. On the inside cover of the module, which I'm sure is somewhere else in this PDF, is a topographic map of the hill. And I would show it, I would throw it in front of the camera if I had my print copy with me, but I don't, so I can't. I don't know where in the PDF it is. It might be at the end. Well, let's see. Okay, it's showing the trails. Let's see. On the inside cover of the module is a topographic map of the hill showing the trails that wind through the dense vegetation, the clearings, the cliffs, and the specific encounter areas. Also on the inside cover is a detailed map of the ruined monastery that lies on the hill, and below the monastery lies 3 levels of dungeons. And we got some, okay, so just telling us where the maps are. The module is designed for a group of 5 to 10 player characters, right? And remember back, old school games supported more players generally than the modern game. They just were easier to run, less complicated, less, I don't want to say overlap, because obviously if you have 10 player characters, you're probably getting a lot of overlap of skills, but just not as complicated to run. And of course, that's not even including any hirelings, followers, that sort. Well, in level 1, you're probably not going to really have any followers, but certainly you could pool together money and try to buy some hirelings. So it's a lot. So potentially a lot of characters running around. Let's see, right? Of levels 1, 2, or 3, the lower the level of the characters, the larger the number of characters recommended. So if it's level 1, really they're saying you should have 9 or 10. If they're all level 3. You could maybe get away with 5. So clearly they are saying that for a first level party, if this was your introductory dungeon, it could be tough if you're running with just a crew of 5. Alright, I'm just going to keep scrolling down here. Okay. And oh, look at that. If characters starting out their first adventure, they may roll 4d6 instead of 3d6 per the basic rulebook to determine their starting money. Okay, that's because they're saying that the prices found here are inflated. All right, so they're saying, if you're going to start here, give them a little bit extra cash because the prices are higher. Here we have a little bit on meeting at the fort. And of course, you could always, substitute your own party gathering adventure or explanation or backstory or whatever. But this has the, the now very, very well used trope of meeting up at the inn. Kind of most interested in the rumors. Let's see what we've got. All right. Rumor number 1. Many centuries ago, an old monastery was located on top of the hill. I'm just going to move a hair off my monitor. Thank you. This is true. 2. A fire-breathing dragon lives in the caves below the hill. This is also true. A band of slave-trading ogres is using the hill as a base for forays into the civilized lands. This is false. Man-eating ghouls prowl the hill for food. True. There is a haunted graveyard on the hill. Also true. An evil witch lives on the hill. Her house appears to be a small hut, but in reality is an extravagant palace where she keeps the tortured souls of all who have trespassed on the slopes. True. A huge orc army is entrenched on the hill, waiting for orders to begin a massive assault on Guido's fort. False. A bubbling lake of lava lies below the hill. The lake is the source of the steam columns that often rise into the air from many vents on the slope summits. False. I mean, that one seems logical, but of course that's discounting the fact that there's a dragon down there. Or I suppose that there's a hobgoblin army lurking about that could also be making steam. Gosh, this monitor's a little bit dirty today. Excuse me. All right. So we got some stuff on purchasing equipment. That's fine. Not going to worry too much about that. All right, getting to the hill and back. This is interesting. I've run games, and I actually kind of like it where you have to sort of travel to the adventure location from wherever your home is. And I remember the first time I did that, the players forgot to book travel back, so they had some interesting ways of getting. They had to figure out ways to get home. It just makes for some interesting. One, it gives them an automatic. If you like to vary your kind of encounters, it gives you an automatic kind of role-playing encounter when they have to go and haggle with some fisherman or somebody else. Not just the pickup, but the delivery and the timing. How much time do they tell the fisherman? Does the fisherman retort back with, well, they got other stuff to do, right? So either you're going to pay them to sit around, or you're going to either have to make sure they get back, or you're going to have to figure out a signaling system. Just ends up coming up with a lot of creativity on the player's parts, on figuring out when you can't just call an Uber to get to back home, how you get there. Let's see what the module says. Characters can cross the River Shrill, and I love the name River Shrill, to begin their adventure on the hill by seeking out one of the fishermen in Guido's fort. Since times are hard for the fishermen, any of them are willing to ferry the party across the river. Since the hill is so dangerous, though, the cost of the ferry is high, 20 gold pieces. Yeah, that is pretty high. The party might also try to rent a boat from a fisherman, but without success. A fisherman might agree to sell the party a boat, but no fisherman is willing to rent one. Everyone in Guido's fort is convinced the party is doomed, and renting a boat to a people you'll never see again doesn't make any sense. If the party decides to buy a boat, the cost is 50 to 80 gold pieces. And you can, what is that, 1d4 times 4, or no, 1d4 plus 4 times 10? Right. So between 5, yeah, that makes sense. As long as the party is adventuring on the surface of the hill, or in the first level of the dungeon below the hill, the party may return to Guido's fort as often as they want or can. If they haven't bought their own boat, though, they must make arrangements for returning to Guido's fort before they leave. Even if they choose to stay on and under the hill throughout the adventure, they need return passage when the adventure is ended. So, in any case, without their own boat, the party must plan ahead for at least one return passage. Right, and that planning can be fun, and it could create its own adventures. If they're late, for example, and they miss the boat, well, then they got to figure out how to get across, flag somebody else, try to build their own boat. Lots of options. And this is also where I feel like a lot of times, I don't know, I kind of feel like it now in particular, GMs will just want to just kind of hand wave that stuff, but there's a lot of fun things in there. Getting back, I think, is an underused part of the adventure these days. It's not just about getting there. You got to get back. Perhaps they want to arrange for a fisherman to pick them up at a specified time and place. Any of the fishermen are willing to do so for another 20 gold pieces, but the party must be on time or the fisherman leaves. The party might also arrange for a fisherman to pick them up when he sees a smoke signal the party sends. Once the party builds its smoke signal, fire, there is only a 20% chance per turn someone in Guido's fort sees the signal. The fisherman begins crossing the river 1 to 4 turns after someone notices a smoke signal. And they don't say so, but I'm assuming these are exploration turns, so we're talking 10 minutes. I mean, they're out in the wilderness, so you could even think of it as a longer time. Maybe you could think of it as hours. And of course, they don't mention anything, but there's some interesting stuff in there if you want to play with it, which is, let's say they go in, they do some exploring, they're coming back. They have determined, okay, we're going to light this smoke signal. Well, we know there's all kinds of nasties, hobgoblin army, all kinds of things on the hill. Well, what are they going to do when they see this smoke go up? And I like that they give timing in there, so we know it's not instantaneous. We know that either some amount of minutes or hours, depending on how you want to do it, they're going to have to sit around that signal fire and wait. So that's a great kind of encounter. If you're rolling random encounters, something comes up, they want to keep that smoke going, because if they let the fire go out, then whoever the fisherman's just going to turn around and say, oh, whatever, and then leave, and they have to stay there. So what comes, what can they do, right? They got to kind of defend this area. They got to stay in the area. They got to at least keep the nasties off of them, and then potentially make a mad swim out to the boat or wherever, however they get on it. So that's really kind of a fun encounter, and it's all about just this element of having to do that return trip. If the party has talked to the old timer at the inn, and they find him waiting for them at the waterfront as they are getting ready to leave. Impressed by the party's courage and determination, he offers them a bottle of clear liquid as a parting gift. He tells them a drink of the liquid helps to heal wounds, and he cautions them to use it sparingly. The bottle contains 3 doses of potion of healing. Not cure light wounds, potion of healing. So we're going to get some about the goblins. They got goblins and hobgoblins on and under the hill, organized into a loose army under the Hobgoblin King, and the king lives in the dungeon under the hill, but he's not extremely powerful or effective. His troops are numerous but cowardly, and if combat with goblins or hobgoblins goes badly for the monsters, they try to escape. If the party prevents such an escape, the monsters surrender to save their own lives. This is other important kind of stuff. So they're saying right here, these things are not going to fighting to the death. They're not even particularly great, so if you want to try to, they're cowardly and whatnot, if you want to work that into their tactics, it might mean that if a fighter comes, or a couple of fighters, given that you might have 7, 10 PCs come charging in, they might not be that keen to want to engage. And if they're starting to lose, they're going to leave. And then if the players can be wily enough to get them cornered so they can't escape, they're not going to fight to the death. They're going to surrender. And of course, you can use reaction and morale to figure all that stuff out. But you know that you're being given their general attitude, which is these are not fight to the death, super troops, right? Note that if the characters return to town between sorties on the hill, certain monsters are not idle in their absence. In particular, ogres, hobgoblins, and goblins replenish their garrison 3 days after the party cleans them out. In fact, there's a 33% chance the number of ogres, hobgoblins, or goblins is actually 50% larger than the number first encountered. Wandering monsters do not replenish themselves, however. Okay. So there we go. So the organized monsters are not sitting around, so if the party dawdles too long, not only are they going to regain the numbers they lost, but they can actually get stronger. So you have to temper your wanting to be safe and smart with understanding that the longer you take, the more these guys are building up. But the kind of random stuff you might find on the hill is not coming back. So you can whittle those down. Important. Encounters with wandering monsters are designed to keep the PCs on their toes. They are not designed to be the ultimate challenge or climax of the adventure. If the dice call for an encounter that you feel would seriously deplete the party's strength, you should ignore that encounter. Well, look at that. Isn't that a little diddly dandly do to encounter here in module B5? Basically saying, hey, look, the adventure isn't about random encounters, right? It's about the players, right? The random encounters are there, obviously, to keep the world diverse and whatnot, but you don't want to make that the focus. So don't. It's kind of interesting, right? basically saying if you roll something and you got a couple of first level, you're 5, and you roll or just a random encounter, that they don't want the adventure to end there. They're not saying that, hey, don't kill your party if the dice call for it, but that you want the you want it to be the things that the adventure is about that cause the demise, which makes sense for a couple of reasons. And not that I necessarily agree with that. I'm not sure what I would do if I rolled up something really nasty, but I can understand what they're saying, because the adventure is the horror on the hill. And these random encounters, unlike in, say, a dungeon or a mega dungeon, where kind of all the different random encounters are it's kind of what you're dealing with. Here, they're just kind of around. So I think they want to keep everybody focused on the sort of the main, the real meat of the stuff, which is the things on the hill itself. So if something's going to kill the party, let it be that stuff, because then the next characters will be driven, as you usually are, right? Something kills you, you want to go back and get it. So you want to keep everything focused on whatever we're going to defeat. It's focusing you back into the module, into kind of the meat of the adventure, and not just stuff on the side. And that makes doubly sense because it's a module. Because if you get too wrapped up in just random stuff happening, then you're not really on the module anymore. The module's trying to guide you into this adventure. If you're running your home game and it's just there, like a lot of people do, you say, okay, we've got Guido's fort and we got the stuff happening on the hill, we're just kind of drop it in there. Then maybe you don't mind. You can create a whole other thing where some random ogres ambush the party, destroy them, so the next characters want to go after the ogres, and then the ogres transitions into a whole other adventure over somewhere else. But as far as but you've left horror on the hill at that point. You're running your own thing. So they're kind of saying if you're trying to really run the module, then keep things focused on the module and try not to, as much as you can, let things get too sidetracked on other things. But very kind of modern advice, right? From an old module comes modern advice. Adventure on the surface of the hill. See map inside cover. Well, the map will, I'm sure, come up somewhere, but is not here. Well, I'm just checking things. All right, so far I think we're all right. I'm just checking the stream. Just want to check, make sure the streaming's going all right. All right. I think so. All right, back to it. Adventure on the surface of the hill. The hill is covered with a thick and tangled hardwood forest, broken occasionally by clearings, cliffs, ponds, streams, and trails. The forest comprises oak and hickory-type trees. Dense and thorny underbrush chokes the ground between the trunks. All the trees are 60 to 80 feet tall. So even if a thief climbs to the top of one, he sees only neighboring branches. Climbing a tree on a slope, however, is 50% likely to yield a view to the downhill side. All right, so you get a little bit of, just a little, it gives you your imagination, I suppose. I mean, I'm not sure back in the day what I would have been able to do with hickory-type trees, since I don't really know offhand what a hickory-type tree is. Oak might have been more sense to me, but now, obviously, you could look them up on your phone on Wikipedia and get some more visuals. And then, the thieves climbing things to get a lookout, I think, is such an ingrained thing for thieves to do that I appreciate them giving at least a little bit of idea of what they will find when they do that, since it's kind of the obvious thing for a thief-type person to do. And don't make them roll to climb the tree, Jams. Just let them climb it. If anything, let them climb it for free, and if something happens and they have to get down fast, then have them roll. But even then, I probably wouldn't, because they're thieves. If the fighter were to go up, I would let the fighter climb for free, and then definitely have him roll coming down. Oops, did I lose something? Oh, all right. Okay. Calculate movement. Oops, I missed the header. Movement on the surface of the hill. Calculate movement around the hill at 5. Is that 300? Gosh, even with my glasses, that's tight for me. It looks like maybe that's 300 feet per turn, 1 square per turn. When the party is following a trail or crossing a clearing, calculate cross-country travel, i.e. off the trails or clearings, at 75 feet per turn, 1 square per 4 turns of travel. After traveling 1 square cross country, a group must spend 2 turns resting. So that's fairly similar to the dungeon exploration, though usually in the dungeon it's 1 turn resting. Here they're saying if you go cross country, obviously they're not saying it outright, but it's more taxing. So now instead of having to spend 10 minutes resting, you're spending 20 minutes. And obviously we're talking about squares here, not hexes. So presumably turns and everything there, even though they don't say so, we are talking just a standard exploration turn, so 10 minutes. Trails are easily detectable. The party must travel trails in single file if characters want to move at normal trail speed. Cut speed in half if they move 2 abreast. But 2 characters can fight side by side if combat occurs on a trail. The bushes alongside the trail are a nuisance when one is trying to walk through them. They can easily be pushed aside if it's a matter of life and death. Alright, so when you're walking, it's a pain to walk side by side, but in a fight, you can just jam yourself in there. Not a problem. Only a thief who successfully rolls to climb sheer surfaces may climb or traverse a cliff. The thief must make a successful roll once for each cliff. If the thief trails a rope, he or she may use the rope to belay other characters, who may then move up or along the cliff safely. Well, there you go. Look at that. So there's a nice advantage if you have a thief. And I think the climb sheer surfaces is probably the best. I mean, they have the best chance of succeeding of all their thief skills. So I think you already start in the 70s or 80 percentages for that. So that's something good that your thieves can get into doing and can do well and be a benefit. So there you go. Some love to the thief. If a thief should be so unfortunate as to fall, the fall begins at the middle of the climb or traverse. The thief may try to stop his fall by grabbing onto a bush or rock outcrop. He may try to do so after each 10 feet or fall by rolling a d20. If he rolls his dexterity score or less, he has made a successful grab and stops falling. The thief takes 1d6 hit points of damage for each 10 feet. So you're pretty much going to take at least 1d6 points of damage, but you can roll under dex to stop yourself. And I don't know if I've seen, is this the first place that I've seen a roll under attribute actually referenced in the official material? I'm pretty sure in the basic rulebook they talk about it, that you can do it, but I don't know if they actually gave an example in there, and I don't remember either Keep on the Borderlands or Isle of Dread actually having one. So that's pretty interesting, but there it is. Roll under dex to get there, and hopefully you're a thief, you've got fairly good dex, so that's a doable, should be a doable roll. A party may use a rope to descend a cliff, but the rope must be tied to a solid object at the top. If an entire party descends in this fashion, the rope must be left behind. First character to descend a cliff by rope must be a thief or a non-armored character, and he or she may do so in 1 turn. Once the first character has descended and presumably found easy passage, all the other characters may follow at a rate of 50 feet per round. All right, so again, right, we've got some usefulness for the thief because they can go up and down these cliffs easier, and I guess the idea behind the first person going down the cliff is that they are kind of finding their way, right? So they're finding their way, so the next folk can find their way, so on and so forth. Let's see, where were we? Once 1 turn is required for a party to cross a stream, but the streams are so shallow there's no danger of drowning or being swept away. The ponds must be circled since their bottoms are too soft for wading. Okay. Well, I guess, all right, so they basically covered, oh, and there's one more bit to cover. The swamp areas to the south and west of the hill extend for miles beyond the map. Calculate movement through the swamps at the cross-country rate, though the party probably avoids these stagnant bogs unless they happen to be running for their lives and no escape is available. All right, so if they do end up in those swamps, they're presuming that they probably are trying to get the heck out of Dodge. Let's see. And then, yeah, you just go at a slower rate. Okay. There's that. Just checking things. Just checking in on how we're doing. Okay. Okay. seem to be. Why does my preview show blackness? Bum. All right, I'm just gonna keep rolling. Hopefully, it will reassert itself. Monsters on the surface of the hill. Check for wandering monsters on the hill every 3 turns when the party is moving, and every 6 turns if they are stationary. Camping. If you roll a 1 on a 1d6, one of the following types of monsters is encountered. See the table below. Roll a 1d6 again to determine the exact creatures. Note that you use one list for nighttime and another for daytime. All right, so a couple of things here that we can note. So once every 3 turns is, well, what was that? So it's twice an hour. And then once an hour when camping. So there's a lot of stuff here. A lot of things to run into, and a good chance you're going to run into them. I think the interesting thing here, I'm just looking at, is every 6 turns if they're camping. So they're basically telling you that even at night, you're getting it once an hour. So, right, so if you're taking an 8-hour rest on the hill, you're going to get 8 random encounter checks. So pretty hard to camp on the hill. Of course, that doesn't, that's not, that's assuming you make no special preparations. I'm not sure what special preparations you could do, but something to make it easier. But this is also on the surface of the hill, so presumably you get into some sort of building or other protected area and you might have a better chance. But yeah, it's not an easy place. Not an easy place to find your way out there on the hill. Monsters on the surface. Oh, that's where I was. All right, since so many monsters swarm through the forest on the hill, the party may encounter one type of wandering monster several times. For example, if the party encountered and killed 8 skeletons one night, nothing would prevent another band of skeletons from attacking the player characters the next night or even later on that same evening, if you should roll such a circumstance. All right, so they're basically saying, hey, you might have to roll more than times. If you get the same thing, that's okay. There's just a bunch of them. Keep them coming. All right, so let's look at these wandering monsters. So we got two lists, one daytime, one nighttime. Okay, we'll go through the daytime first. 1 to 6 hobgoblins. I'm not going to read through all their specifics. You can look up their stats if you absolutely need to have them. I'm just more interested in what they are. So 1d6 hobgoblins, a solitary ogre, 1d6 sturges, a horned chameleon, a handful of killer bees, 1 to 3, and then Neanderthals, 1d4 of them. So those, I think, were what we saw on the cover. Then, should we be at night? We've got goblins, 1 to 8 of them, 1d8. 1 or 2 ghouls, 1d4 giant bats, 1d8 skeletons, 2d6 giant rats, or a thule. All right. So it's mostly, so we got goblins. Yeah, we got a pretty good selection of things, right? We got, if we just tally them all together, we got goblins, hobgoblins, ogres, sturges, chameleon, bees, Neanderthals, ghouls, giant bats, giant rats, and thules. A nice selection. All right, so then we're going to get to the keyed areas. I'm probably just going to go and just, maybe where there's something extra. I'm probably not going to go through and read all the boxed text, just to keep things moving. Okay, so so I'll do this one because it is the beehive. Looks like from whence all these killer bees that you can encounter randomly, or might show up. This large clearing is pleasant and flowery, and tall grasses wave in the faintest breeze. But unbeknownst to anybody entering, there is a killer beehive here. If the PCs stop and listen at the east end of this clearing, there is a 75% chance one of them notices a low-pitched buzzing. If the characters remain at the east end of the clearing, there is a 20% chance per round that a killer bee sights them. If they move more than 100 yards into the meadow, the killer bees certainly catch sight of them. The bees automatically attack any creatures they find in the clearing. Note that if the party does not specifically state that they are listening at the east end of the clearing, they do not hear the bees until the bees have sighted them. If the party enters the clearing from the west end, the party and the bees see each other immediately. All right. So here we get the killer bees and the queen bee. And this is just definitely one of those things that unless you're super careful when you enter this thing, you're probably just going to get attacked. Either you're surprised or they're surprised or both. I'm guessing more likely you're surprised, since basically if you kind of move, I don't know, 100 yards is a pretty good space, but if you kind of move in that direction, you're probably going to get attacked by bees. But I guess you would probably roll, I would probably roll for surprise for both parties to see who sees who first. So we get some killer bees, 8 of them, and then a queen bee. If the bees attack, they do not reach the party as a huge swarm. Rather, on the first round of combat, 1 bee attacks. On the second round, 3 bees. And on the third round, the entire hive, except the queen, arrives. If the party flees, the bees do not pursue beyond the edge of their clearing. Note that the queen bee stays behind to defend the hive. The hive of the killer bees is located in a hollow beneath a dead tree trunk, marked by an X on the map. As explained in the basic rulebook, the honey acts as half-strength potion of healing. Oh, I didn't know that. Learn something new. So that you can run and the bees will not follow. The queen's going to hang back to defend the hive. Does the queen... Let's see. Yeah, so each bee dies after it stings. The queen bee can sting repeatedly. And they're going to kind of come in waves. So you're going to have a chance to assess what you want to do and leave. What's also interesting is if you had encountered these in the past somewhere, or maybe you knew, right, this is somewhere that if you needed healing, you could try to get to that honey and get some healing out of it. We'll see, we also have a driver anthill with some driver ants. We have a glade of magical berries. What are the magical berries about? There are 12 berries on each bush, and each berry acts as a half-strength potion of healing, which heals 1d4 points of damage for each berry eaten. Berries spoil fairly quickly, though, and are only effective if eaten within 1 day of being plucked from the bush. The detect magic spell indicates the bushes and berries are indeed magical. That's great. If you find that one and can get there and back, you can again get another source of impromptu healing, which I think I like. I don't remember there being much in Keep on the Borderlands in the way of finding bits of healing, but I do like the fact that if you explore this area, you can find some places that you can keep coming back to. Presumably if you don't kill this bush, you could return there a couple times to eat some more berries. And there's unlike the beehive, you don't have to fight anything to get it. It's just there. You just have to find it. There's an ancient statue on top of a steep, rocky hillside. All right, there used to be some jewels in the eye sockets, but they are long gone. There's a cavern of bats. Is there anything interesting in the cavern of bats besides bats? Just got some go through, stagnant water, empty cave, the bat hideout with 6 giant bats. We got a narrow ridge. First cavern of the steam weevils. Ooh, always a fan of the steam weevil. The air in this cave feels moist and warm. The walls and floor are smooth and free of rubble, and visibly damp. Okay. High pressure bursts of steam. Hill blasting from the vent in the back of the cave. There's a 25% chance a swarm of steam weevils are discovered in the cave. If they are, these creatures immediately move to surround a randomly selected character among those entering the cave. Alright, so it's a swarm. Alright, well, so this is a new monster. I was wondering why it wasn't really familiar. It sounded familiar, but I don't remember seeing them. That's because they're new. So we'll see what the steam weevils can do in the new monster section. For every turn the party is inside the cave, there's a 5% chance the steam is forced through the cave. If steam is forced through, characters inside hear a gurgling and hissing noise, gradually building in volume for the round immediately preceding the eruption. Anyone who remains inside as the steam erupts takes 1d6 points of damage from the scalding heat for each round they spend engulfed in steam. The blast lasts for 2 to 20 rounds. Wow. So when you hear that gurgle, what was that? It reminds me a little bit of the fire swamp in Princess Bride, right? You hear those noises, then get the heck out of Dodge. But there's only a 5% chance, every turn. And I don't know here if they mean combat turns or not. Because presumably, I don't know. That's an interesting... Because I guess on the one hand you think, are you in combat with the Steam Weevils? But the Steam Weevils don't necessarily have to be there. There's only a 25% chance. So I don't know if they mean once every 10 minutes or once every, what is it? It's whatever the round is in BX. I can't remember. 6 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it is. We have a Pleasant Glade. Okay, so here we get the Hobgoblin Camp Clearing. This clearing rests on the edge of a large pond. The shoreline of the pond has been churned into a muddy mess. An odor of carrion hangs in the air. The grass in the clearing has been trampled flat, and several shoddy tents and huts are visible at the far end. So here's where we find the Hobgoblin Camp. Hobgoblin Camp has been established as a guard post on the hill, and from the encampment, the garrison sends out regular patrols along the trails. The camp itself is a dirty collection of 5 animal hide tents and 3 brushy dome-shaped shelters made of twigs and leaves. The poor tanning of the tents accounts for the odor of rotting meat. Gross. At least to me. Maybe the hobgoblins dig that smell. 3 hobgoblins stand guard at the entrance to the camp by the trail leading into the camp, and 10 more of these ugly humanoids are back at the tents and huts. They attack intruders on sight. If the PCs flee, the hobgoblins pursue ruthlessly over the hill. There you have it. So we got, all in all, there's 12 hobgoblins in here. The 9 hit point. Okay, so they give you all the hit point totals, and the one with the most, is that the most hit points? Yep, the one with the most hit points has a +1 sword. So look at that. There's a little bit of a reward there if you can get that guy down. The other hobgoblins are armored with swords. In addition, one of the guards and 3 of the hobgoblins in the camp carry spears, which they cast as soon as they are within 40 feet of the party for 1d6 hit points of damage. If the hobgoblins fail a morale check, they may attempt to reach the trail leading out of the camp. If the party is positioned to cut them from the trails, the humanoids try to flee along the shore of the pond so they can reach the trail on the north end of the pond. They flee down the trail and through clearing number 17, which we haven't seen yet, to the ruined monastery, which is Area A. Here they enter the dungeon to warn their king that enemies are roaming the hill. If the characters investigate the tents and huts in the encampment, they find them filthy, odorous, and dimly lit inside. If the characters make a thorough search, they find in each tent a sack containing 3 to 18, 3d6 gold pieces, old pieces of leather garments, broken swords, 1d4 wineskins filled with cheap wine, and a large bowl of unidentifiable swill. Unidentifiable swill. Why is... Bleh. I feel like I'm not getting good... I feel like I'm not getting good bandwidth here in the stream, so apologies for that. I'm just going to keep it on. See if I can salvage things, and I'm going through Restream, so I don't know if that's helping or harming, but at least it means I'll have a recording of this, because I'm not recording it locally, that hopefully I can pull down, and I can see what's what. Alright, so what do we make of this? So we get to this encampment. They're going to attack, but then when they fail a morale roll, they're going to try to get out of dodge and warn their leader, which is good. I guess depending on how you've come across this, maybe you have scouted this out in a way that you can try to stop them from getting back. That seems like maybe a tough task, because since you're only 5 to 10 people. But maybe because of the way the pond is and the trail, you can try to cut them off. There are 12 of them, which is not a ton. One of them has that +1 sword, which is a nice reward if you can get that one down. They don't mention where in the mix that guy is. Would he be, is he a kind of a captain type who would try to get in on the action immediately, or is he one that would be hanging back and then one of the first to flee? But it is a nice prize. And then you've got some meager amounts of treasure and stuff inside the huts. Clearing of the mysterious cottage. In the center of this clearing is a whitewashed cottage lined with bright green shutters. Gravel walkways connect the cottage to each of 3 trails into the forest, and pleasant gardens of bright flowers surround the home. White curtains, delicately embroidered, hang over each of the 4 windows. This cottage is home to Rosabella, a 5th-level cleric, and Rosalinda, a 6th-level magic user. They are sisters, and each is a plump, gray-haired old lady of vitality and pleasant manner. Neither gives a clue about their class or abilities when talking to strangers, whom they greet cheerfully. Both ladies are neutrally aligned. Alright, so Rosabella has protection from evil, detect magic, hold person, silence, 15-foot radius. Rosalinda has sleep, shield, phantasmal force, mirror image, fireball, and fly. Alright, so that's a good mix. Just that fireball could just wipe you out right there. Neither sister carries any weapons, but Rosabella wears a ring of protection +3 and has a staff of healing. And Rosalinda has a wand of paralyzation. Wow. So they've got some gear, too. As soon as characters enter the clearing, the 2 sisters bustle out of the cottage to greet them. Rosalinda has a rolling pin thrust through her apron strings. Rosabella is empty-handed. The shaft of the rolling pin is actually her wand of paralyzation. Sneaky. The sisters smile happily and invite the party inside for some tea and cake. So I imagine this would immediately put me on edge, because you're in this really nasty place full of nasty things, and there are these 2 plump sisters just coming in and inviting you for tea and cake, and has a very fairy tale vibe of, even though they appear so nicely, there's got to be just something wrong with them. If the characters accept the invitation, the sisters precede them through the front door. The cottage is actually a permanent illusion that disguises a much larger building. The cottage, so it's not a TARDIS, I guess. No interdimensional space. The cottage appears to be 20 feet square on the outside, but the room that the characters enter is actually 40 feet square. 2 hallways lead off of this room, and the ladies take the party down one of these, past a sweeping stairway to a 2nd floor, and into a large parlor. The sisters' quote-unquote cottage is in reality a mansion 2 stories high. Many fine paintings, gold and silver ornaments, and bejeweled knickknacks are visible throughout their home. However, a virtual web of magical protection has been laid across and around the house, making the sisters impossible to steal from. If the sisters are killed, the house and all its contents immediately turn to dust. Note that the house's contents do not include the bodies of the PCs, but does include all their possessions. What? Note that the house's contents do not include the bodies of the PCs, but does include all of their possessions? Are they talking about the PCs or the sisters? I guess they say PCs, so I guess if the sisters are killed, all your stuff turns to dust. Oh, that is nasty. Absolutamente nasty. If the party foolishly attacks the sisters, the ladies try to overpower the characters without killing them. They use the Wand of Paralysis and Sleep, Phantasmal Force, and Hold Person spells to knock the characters out. If the sisters succeed, the characters wake up in clearing number 6 with all of their possessions except any coins and magic items they had been carrying. If the party somehow overpowers the sisters without killing them, allow the characters to collect all manner of valuable gold and jeweled items. However, as soon as the characters try to carry any of this booty out of the house, it disintegrates into worthless dust. Alright. So, I guess we got to keep reading on, because I'm curious as to what you're supposed to do with this. They invite you in for tea. They seem totally harmless. This is almost begging the chaotic or super loot-oriented characters to try to make mischief. And of course, it's just bound to fail. On the other hand, if the characters are reasonably polite, the ladies treat the characters to delicious herbal tea and spiced cake. The sisters chatter pleasantly about their garden, the woods around the hill, and the weather. They do not mention or discuss monsters or other inhabitants of the hill. If the party asks them for specific information or other help, the ladies smile benignly and reply, "Nobody gets something for nothing. What have you to offer us?" The sisters are avaricious indeed, happy to give the party information, healing, and perhaps even some small magic items if the price is right. They never give anything away. Since they love a good bargaining session, they always ask for more money than they think they can get. If the party becomes annoyed or angry during the bargaining and makes threats to the sisters, the ladies primly request the party to leave. If they do not, the full fury of the sisters' spells is likely to be loosed. For the following information, the ladies ask for 100 gold pieces, but settle for 40 gold pieces. Knowledge, okay, so here's what they know. Knowledge of all the types of wandering monsters on the hill. The Hobgoblin Camp, which we just saw. The Ogre's Cave, a cave of steam weevils, which we also saw. The Neanderthal's Cave, and the graveyard and its denizens. For another negotiated fee, they ask for 150 but will settle for 75 gold pieces. They tell of the ruined monastery and the dungeon below it, including the fact that many hobgoblins and goblins use it as a base of operations. The sisters do not know that a red dragon lives in those caverns, however. Out of information but not satisfied to end the bargaining, the sisters offer to make another deal. I'll use my staff of healing. Oh, let me get my sister voice back up. I'll use my staff of healing and my Cure Light Wound spell to bring everyone in your party up to full strength, says Rosabella. In return for this act of healing, you must bring us the head of the male ogre that lives on the hill, when I'll heal all your wounds again. That is an ogre that lives in area number 14. Suppose the party agrees to this deal and performs the required deed. When they present the ogre's head to the sisters are duly respectful. To show their admiration, they offer the PCs one final generous deal. The sisters will give the party 2 magical scrolls and 2 bottles of magical potions. In return, at the end of the adventure, the sisters will meet the party at Guido's fort and claim as payment any single item the party has acquired in the course of the adventure. If the party accepts the deal, the sisters send them on their way with a potion of invisibility and a potion of healing, a clerical scroll with the spell Cure Light Wounds, Detect Magic and Protection from Evil, and a magic user scroll with Web, Detect Magic, and Magic Missile. The sisters are very earnest when making deals. If the characters do not carry out their part of the deal, the sisters search them out wherever they might try to go, insistent on collecting their due. If the PCs resist, a fireball spell might help them change their minds. Yes, might help them change their mind or their bodies. All right, so this is really interesting. So this encounter is, I don't know, it's kind of classic. It's great, right? Because it's playing against the expectations. They're going to present you in the situation where you've got loot all over the place, just begging you to do something to take that loot. But if you do that thing, even if you do as well as you could and you're able to take down the sisters, you're still going to get nothing. Instead, if you go against that and you deal with them, which I think in one of those things that, you know, people might say, well, that's unfair. How do I know this or that? Well, you know, because you have these 2 seemingly kindly old sisters living in an extremely dangerous place, and they seem to have no fear, and nothing seems to be bothering them. That should cue you off immediately to the fact that these sisters are not just some kindly old women baking cakes. And if you start to go down that path and you think about how powerful they might be to be able to exist here safely, then maybe that cues you on the fact that we're level 1 to 3, like the module says we should be, that maybe we shouldn't just try to gank them in their own home. Which, by the way, when you walk inside, you went from this little cottage into this massive mansion. So that's also cue you into the fact that there's a lot of stuff going on here that you don't know about. If you can hold to yourself, there's interesting stuff to be had. Information, items, whatnot. But you gotta be strong. Gotta be disciplined. All right, we got a Cavern of Ogres. I don't think I'm going to skip to the Cavern of Ogres. Ogres got 6 goblin slaves. They got a bedroom, storage rooms. There's another Cavern of Steam Weevils. You get the Cave of the Neanderthals. Oh, the Neanderthals have a council chamber. There's a bunch of them in here too. 12. And they have some sleeping chambers. All right, let's get to the graveyard. Bunches of thorn bushes have started to grow along the north end of the clearing. You see many smooth, roughly square white stones lying among the thorns. In centuries past, the bodies of the chaotic monks and clerics of the monastery were laid to rest here, and the blight of that evil has infected the very ground. If the thorns are cleared from the headstones, the monuments prove too weathered to read, though signs of engraving can be detected. Of greater significance is the fact that 1 out of every 3 graves has been dug up in the last few years. Characters notice this oddity if they enter the thorny area for a close examination. The graves are 10 feet apart. For each grave the group reaches, roll a 1d6. A result of 1 or 2 indicates the grave has been excavated, and there is no sign of the body that formerly occupied it. In the part of the graveyard lying in the woods, underbrush and roots have screened or destroyed most of the headstones. However, lurking among the bushes and trees are 4 ghouls. These hideous, undead monsters stalk through the bushes to get as close to the party as possible before attacking. Roll 3d6 and multiply by 10 to determine how far away the ghouls are when first sighted by the party. I presume that's in feet. So basically, as close as 30 feet or as far away as 180 feet, right? 4 ghouls. And there's a dragon escape tunnel for the dragon. This large vegetation-choked cave is used by a red dragon as an entrance-exit point from his dungeon lair deep under the hill. He avoids the vegetation by flying out of the cave. The cave mouth is 30 feet wide and 20 feet high. The characters have no chance to discover this cave. Alright, well that's unfair. But obviously, from a module standpoint, we can understand why, because that would basically be an end around the entire thing going down to the dragon. They don't want you to do that, so they're basically saying you can't find it. It's not fair. I don't know if I would have done it this way, but I understand the predicament that they're in with that. They want to have some kind of escape route for the dragon, which I think is also for the party once they get down there, right? How did the party get out? They can get out through this tunnel, but they don't want you going in through this tunnel. So what do? You just say you can't find it. Perhaps there have been more creative ways to make it so either you could find it, but it's just for 1 to 3rd level characters, just impossible for you to get out of, or maybe some other kind of explanation. But it is what it is. Alright, so now we're at the ruined monastery. Let's see, the characters. Adventure in the ruined monastery. The characters notice something unusual about this place. Notice nothing unusual about this place until they cross the broken down wall at the western perimeter of the old courtyard. It then becomes obvious that, though heavily overgrown, the large rectangle was human built. The outer wall is almost entirely destroyed. What wall still stands is obscured by vines. Several squarish buildings and a large pool of stagnant water are visible. Yes, indeed. Alright. Certain creatures inhabit these ruins, and the party may encounter 1 or more of these denizens. Roll a d6 every 2 turns. So I think we were at 1 every 3 turns before. Now we're every 2 turns. A result of 1, roll 1d6 every 2 turns. A result of 1 means that the following types of creature is encountered. We've got a table coming up. Roll a d6 again to determine which monster. Let's see. Okay, so here we have wandering monsters in the ruined monastery. Rock baboons, 1d4. Hobgoblins, 1d6. A dire wolf, 1d6 zombies. And our old friends, giant centipedes, 1d8. So now we have the key. I'm going to try to, again, kind of breeze through these just to look at the highlights as I find them. We get a huge pool. Is there anything in the pool? Let's see, the water's depth varies from 2 feet at the rim to 6 feet in the middle. Let's see, there used to be a bathhouse there, but there are 8 giant centipedes. Doesn't look like there's anything in the pool. I kind of like to have stuff in the pools. At least sometimes. I mean, I guess maybe not all the time, but it's fun to have because it's one of those things when I feel like when you see features like pools, you just want to explore them because they so often have stuff in them. But of course, there's that fun stuff of what is the liquid in the pool. Is it water? Is it acid? Is it really some kind of slime or other, sentient nastiness? And of course, what are the creatures that could be living somewhere in the pools? A lot of fun to be had with pools, but I like to have that carrot of you see glimmer at the bottom of the pool. Do you try to get it, or even if you can't see the bottom, but you just have a feeling that something good's got to be down there, right? Something's good. All right, we have a steam vent. This wide crevice is apparently bottomless. Greenish mold and fungi grows thickly along the lip of the opening. As is true of the other vents of the hill, there's a 5% chance per turn that the vent erupts in a column of steam. All right, so yeah, don't stick your head for too long in the steam vent. We have an old tomb. Let's see. There's a statue in there. The statue's about 12 feet tall. But its protruding belly prevents any character wearing metal armor from climbing up the statue and recovering the gems. So you have 2 gems, I guess, in the eyes, each worth 100 gold pieces, but if you have metal armor, you can't get over it. Kind of interesting, because you'd think in chainmail would that really do it, but that's just what they say. Thief, get thee up there and get me those gems. As soon as any character touches a statue or opens one of the doors on the perimeter of the room, 12 guardians of the tomb burst from the doors and attack. The guardians are 12 skeletons, and 1 comes from each door. All right, so maybe we should rethink that touching that statue. Though it'll probably be too late by the time we come to that realization. The doors from which the skeletons emerge lead to 12 individual tombs, each a broad slab of stone set in the middle of an otherwise barren room. Behind the slab in one of the rooms is a +2 dagger, visible only if a character enters the room and circles the slab. So there is a little reward there, besides the normal bits of experience, which aren't much, and the gems in the statue. But you got to kind of find it. So it's worth checking around those slabs in each of the rooms if you are victorious. We have a tangled garden with some goblins. One of them's got a shield +1. So you can definitely see how you're starting at level 1. You're only going to have mundane gear, but there are little elements you could find. So there was the one goblin that had the +1 sword. One of the goblins here has a +1 shield. There's a dagger +2. You could have gotten some scrolls and potions from the lady. So even at level 1, you're potentially, depending on how completist you are in moving around, you have the opportunity to arm yourself with some magic right from jump. But of course, in the OSR, items, these kind of magic items are a lot more common. Let's see. So there's Initiate's Barracks. There's a dining hall with some mold in it, but the mold, even though it's sickening greenish yellow, it's not. Is it called yellow mold? Whichever the mold is, it's super deadly. It's not. It's harmless. Let's see. There's some barracks. There's a kitchen with some giant rats in it. If you can dig through the filth, if you can hold your nose and dig through there, you can get some gems. And an arrow +2. Just 1. So probably hold on to that one for the dragon. Not that you really know the dragon is there, but maybe hold on to it. We have the monastic library, which you can get some spells. Oh, scroll rather, with the spells. Cure light wounds, two of them, detect magic, and bless. Alright, so then we get to the magic fountains. So remember I was talking about pools, and I like to have pools that have stuff in them because they just give more things. Fountains and similar things that you can drink or eat are also similar. Kind of high risk, potentially high reward. No roof blocks the sun rays from this part of the monastery, where the atmosphere is peaceful and quiet. Around the perimeter of this restful spot, placed in an orderly fashion, are 9 large birch trees. The ground is covered by a thick cushion of grass and flowers. In the center is a pool, at whose south end a fountain splashes into a shallow bowl. From a spout in the bowl, the water flows back to the long pool. The water is cool and crystal clear. The stones lining the sides and bottom of the pool are glistening white, and reflections of the birch leaves dance in the shimmering surface. So it seems very peaceful, very clean, very pretty, which we should obviously read as being unusual given where we are. This garden was a place of great sacredness to the monastery. To the monastery's original inhabitants. As part of his rise of an rite of initiation, each monk would be allowed to take a drink from the fountain. He would then be judged according to the effects the water had upon him. The magical properties of the fountain still exist, and characters wishing to drink from it may benefit or suffer from its effects. A detect magic spell can identify a strong aura of enchantment from the water in the shallow bowl. The water in the pool, however, is quite mundane, even though it flows from the fountain. Somehow its enchantment vanishes before the water drops into the pool. If a character takes a drink from the fountain, calculate the effects by rolling a d8 and comparing the result to Table 4. Each character may gain only one effect from the water. Any further drinks are simply thirst quenching. All effects take place immediately. They are permanent, except for number 3. Note that if a character's constitution or dexterity is changed, adjustments may need to be made to hit points or armor class. Okay, so we're getting an idea of what kind of effects we could get. If the characters wish to rest in the garden or even spend the night here, they encounter no wandering monsters. All right, so one good thing about this is if you figure that out and you look, this is a spot you can rest. So there's one good thing about this. But really what we're interested in is the magic fountain. Let's see, we got 8 different options we could get. Whoa, my. All right, there we go. Character subtracts 1 from all ability scores. That's not good. Character loses 1 hit point. Also not good. And it's not a wound, so you can't cure it. It's gone. Character is paralyzed for 2d20 or 2d10 hours. Well, then you're probably going to be resting here if that happens. Character gains 2 hit points. Ooh, character adds 1 to a prime requisite score. Character adds 2 to their dexterity score. Character adds 2 each to strength and scores. Oops, that's an old school kind of typo. What do you think that is? I'm guessing dex and strength. Why does my thing keep, I'm just noticing oddities. Okay, so strength and dex. Oh, stop doing that, would you please? Okay, so the first, let's see. We got 4 positive. 5 positive. 3 negative. 2 are kind of really permanently negative. 1 is only momentarily negative. So you got a fairly good odds, right? So you got a, if you can roll, if you just can stay away from 1 or 2, you can deal with the other ones. If you're paralyzed, I mean, you could stay there. If you're smart enough to then sit there until they're finished, then you won't actually come to harm. You won't be making progress, but you won't be attacked every 2 turns. Or you'll get something. You're level 1. You might as well take a drink. What's the worst that could happen? Well, worst that can happen is hopefully you have more than 1 hit point. That would be bad. If you're one of those guys starting out with 1 hit point, you lose your 1 hit point. I'm not sure exactly what can happen. Yeah, that's a rough one. I might just say it doesn't happen. I don't know. Or I guess it withers you up and kills you. I don't know. I guess that's the worst that could happen. The door. Okay, so we have an ancient sanctuary. So we have a big door, 5 giant statues of long forgotten pagan god, 2 secret doors leading out. Each of them can be opened by a simple push. And then there's an empty room. We have an ogre guard room, 2 ogres. They're going to fight savagely, but if morale gets away from them, they're surrendering. Got some beds, got some coins and whatnot. Any magique. And there's a trunk. Inside one of the trunks, there's some wine. There's 400 gold pieces and 1,000 silver pieces. And, oh, and look at that, a bag of holding. It's probably not going to look it, but if you manage to get a detect magic on there, it will be seen. Prison of the Neanderthals. Doors to this room are barred on the outside and locked. Yep, did I lose? Let's see. If it is open, 4 male Neanderthals within are crouching belligerently as if prepared to fight with their bare hands. They are quite surprised if any creatures other than the ogres open the doors and wait to see what develops before attacking. They were captured. Let's see. Since these 4 were captured but a week ago, and since they doubtless would not have survived long in the hands of ogres, they are grateful to anyone who frees them. Although they will not understand the PC's language, they try to communicate that they consider the party to be valuable friends, assuming the party don't attack them, that is. If the party successfully rescues these prisoners, all the Neanderthals on the hill are grateful, offering aid to the party whenever an opportunity presents itself. So you can make some friends. You can, if we're going to look at this in kind of modern terms and say that the Neanderthals are a faction, you can gain some faction brownie points if you rescue them. So hip hip hooray. Oops, let me just fix something here. Sorry about that. All right. Got a supply room. Ooh, there's something in here. The door to this room is locked. The hobgoblin leader in room 38 carries the key. The lock may be picked or the door smashed if the characters wish to gain entrance. This room contains a collection of supplies that look sufficient for a small army. I'm sorry, I got a couple of distractions in my background. I'm just gonna try to get thee off of my space. Why are you not going away? All right, I guess I'll try to position in front of it so it doesn't bother me. Okay, back to the supply room. This room contains a large collection of supplies that look sufficient for a small army. 6 bins, a dozen barrels, 2 crates, and 3 racks are crammed into the large chamber. All right. The bins contain many bushels of dried beans, grains, and fruit. The barrels hold the cheap wine, the same ones that the ogres are drinking. The racks hold an array of weapons, so you can rearm yourself if somehow you've lost some weapons. Short swords, regular swords, spears, crossbows, and 200 quarrels. Each of the crates holds 24 suits of leather armor, and 40 shields hang on the walls of the room. All the weapons and armor are of a size that humans could use. There is nothing to suggest that it is hobgoblins who are collecting and preparing to use these supplies. In truth, the room is a major collection point for the supplies the hobgoblins are gathering for a planned assault on Guido's fort. Since the destruction of this trove would be a considerable setback to the attack plans, consider awarding the PCs 200 experience points if they successfully destroy the contents of the room. They can do so by burning the supplies, but in this case the hallway outside fills with smoke 2 turns after the fire is lit and cannot be occupied for the next 12 turns. Smoke spreads throughout the entire corridor right up to the doors of rooms 32 and 33, but does not penetrate into any rooms doors are closed. Note that the experience point bonus is appropriate only if the characters take the initiative to destroy the supplies. It is important you not give the party any suggestion to do so. Even a question such as, what are you going to do with this stuff, might be too suggestive. Alright, so they're saying give a bonus out if the players put some things together. And part of what they put together could very well be, they may not even have the information they need, or they might. If they got the rumors of the hobgoblins, or they've seen other things, and they've gotten the rumors that there's an army coming, and now they saw the hobgoblin camp, and then maybe they got some information from the 2 ladies, and they came up here and they saw all this stuff, then maybe they put all those pluses together in their brains, this, that, the other, that equals, oh, this is related to that, and if they take that information and then act on it, reward them for it, which I think is good. Right? It's 200 experience is not a ton, but it's a sizable one at first level. And it demonstrates giving out experience for stuff other than killing monsters, and other from loot, because this is really, it's the inverse, right? They are essentially destroying loot, potential loot, and you're getting experience for it. You're giving them experience for appreciating the situation and acting, in a sense, really in the good manner, in the just manner, right? These are monsters that are going to destroy stuff, and you are hurting their chances to do so, or setting them back, so you're getting experience experience for it. For dealing them a blow. But you can't tell them about it. You gotta let them figure it out or not. Except for a thick layer of... Oh, so sorry. This is the abandoned chamber. Oh, there's nothing here. This chamber appears totally empty. All right. We have an ancient pagan altar. The bloody cult of monks who once inhabited the monastery used the pit for human sacrifice. Okay. These obviously were some wonderful monks. Hobgoblin garrison. 3 hobgoblins and 2 goblins are greedily feasting on a shank of meat at a dirty table. Their weapons are close at hand, and they leap quickly to defend the room. This is a guard room. This chamber serves as a guard room and a line of defense to prevent unwelcome intruders from discovering the entrance to the dungeon below the monastery. 6 hobgoblins and 6 goblins are on duty here, protecting this approach to their lair and hideout. 4 of the hobgoblins and 4 of the goblins are sleeping when the party discovers this room. The sleeping monsters require 2 rounds to arm and prepare for battle. Alright, so we have 6 hobgoblins, 6 goblins, and one of them has a shield, +1 shield, and he has higher morale. So he must be kind of their leader, even though they don't call him as such. Because as long as he's alive and spurs the other ones on, that also raises their morale. So you can definitely play that out, and I would encourage you, if you're in here, to play that guy out as kind of a leader who is keeping the other goblins and hobgoblins in the fray, so that, you know, hopefully someone takes note of that and decides to think about that old maxim of slaying the head. Right? Get rid of that guy, and maybe the other ones will crack. And I would definitely, you know, have a morale check at a penalty once that guy is eliminated, just for at least the initial fear factor of, oh gosh, they took out the boss. Let's see. The room has plain wooden bunks along each wall. In the center are a table and 2 benches. Each of the hobgoblins has a belt pouch containing some gold pieces and silver pieces. The goblins also have some pouches, but they only have some silver inside. The leader type hobgoblin has the keys to the supply room and the access room on a ring on his belt. And then we can get into the dungeon. We got long stairways, more than 60 feet, which leads to the stairway. Here we go. We're now in dungeon level 1. 1. All right. What can we... Let's see. Any notes about what we could run into? This level of dungeon is a stronghold of the goblins and hobgoblins. Let's see. Although the troops have not been assembled yet, there are enough goblins, hobgoblins, and their large cousins, the bugbears, to keep the characters on their toes. Since these humanoids dominate this level of the dungeon, few other monsters are found. Check for wandering monsters in the normal way. I guess that's once every 2 rounds. If an encounter is indicated, roll and check the result. Okay. Any monster encountered automatically attacks the party, fighting until either the PCs are defeated, all the monsters are dead, or the monsters fail a morale check. In the latter case, any surviving creatures flee towards the room 66 to alert the Hobgoblin King. So down here, they're a little bit more apt to fight, but again, still subject to a morale check. But we know now, at least down here, what they will do. So remember, on the surface, when they fail morale checks, they were likely to surrender or run. Here, they're not going to surrender. They're just going to run. And what might we find down here? Let's see. We can find bugbears, goblins, hobgoblins. All right. Bugbear sitting room. Hold on a second. What's going on over here? Oh, is that just weird? Weird. All right. We have the bugbear sitting room. We have an empty cell. The bugbear's quarters. We can find 3 bugbears. One of them's got a battle axe +1. 2 others have swords. There's a chest. What's inside the chest? Some more leather armor, a short sword, a bow, a quiver, and 16 arrows. 120 silver pieces. 30 electrum pieces, 50 gold pieces, a backpack containing a coil of rope, some oil, and a set of lockpicking tools. That's awfully nice. There is a prison cell with a Cullen de Filch inside. If the characters release Cullen from his prison, he is most grateful, happy to join the party for the duration of the adventure. He does not ask for a share of the loot, claiming that his freedom is reward enough. However, he should be left alone with a bag of jewels, for example, there is no guarantee that the bag remains as full as it was to begin with. Yes. What is he? So he's a second. He's a second level thief. So, well, that makes sense. If the characters are not interested in the services of another thief, Cullen doesn't try to change their minds. He asks if the party has seen any signs of his equipment, and if they have, he asks to have it returned. He does not become hostile, however, feeling his position to be too precarious to risk antagonizing his rescuers. He simply leaves and tries to make his way back to Guido's fort if he is not invited to join the party. So you can get a guy in there. Be careful at leaving your valuables alone with the guy, but he could be another thief. Or, I mean, they're kind of assuming you have a thief in the party, but if you somehow didn't have a thief in the party, well, you can get one. But he's not going to do any backstabbing or anything like that. He's just going to leave. We have a subterranean stream with some giant centipedes in it. I don't see any things. Let's see. No, looks like no discernible loot in there. We have torture chambers with 2 goblins inside. Oops. What are you doing? Now, would you stop doing that? Ah, here's dungeon level 1. All right. There's dungeon level 2. Look at that. You go from level 1, that's fairly orderly, to, oh God! And there's dungeon level 3, which is simpler. Is that supposed to be the dragon way down there? Must be. Yep, there's the escape tunnel. All right. And then we get some more caves. And we're back. We have let's see, a ring bearing a large iron key hangs in the wall of the chamber. Okay, so just the door to the cells if you take out those goblins. We have a cleric's office. And this door is locked. What's inside the door? It's got a desk. I guess I'll just read the description. In this room, a polished circular table, a fern-lined bench, a desk, and a chair give the room a civilized look. An elaborate candelabra made out of silver and worth 50 gold pieces